Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, Spike Week proudly brings to you its best ball tag team champions of the world, the badass Erik Beimfohr, the road dog Rob Coakley, and we are finally doing a show again together. It's been a bit.
The road dog is your nickname?
I was just doing the whole, New Age Outlaws thing from back in the day.
I respect it, but now I feel like that's branded to you for
is it the road dog
forever.
Rob Coakley?
Now road dog is that's it. You've assigned it, and we're never gonna get away from it now. So every time I intro you, when the script is flipped and I'm doing the intro, you're gonna be the road dog.
Fine. I'm fine with it. I'm actually really excited about today's show. This is one we have both been trying to do for, I think, like a month and a half now. But
yep.
the NFL season has been so wild that between trying to do NFL coverage and the draft-a-thons we did and all that other stuff. By the way, our baseball team's in first place because we're awesome at drafting. So
I don't remember a goddamn thing about that. We drafted for anyone that is confused by this, we drafted 4 best ball teams at once in 4 different sports. So NBA, or NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL. I don't remember. I couldn't tell you a player. Not one player. I couldn't tell you any of them. So it's also funny because I would call baseball my third weakest sport out of the 3, NFL, NBA, and then MLB. And it's probably your third weakest sport? Second? I don't know.
I'd probably football, basketball. Then, you know what? Probably hockey would probably be more my sport than baseball, to be honest with you.
Well, it's easy. You have the Bruins. You always can fall back. You know that you have one good team that's your team, so you can fall back on them. I mean, that's what we did in hockey. It was actually a lot easier for hockey probably than it was for baseball. So that's really funny that we're in first for that.
So I know it's early, but we are currently in first with 1,011 points.
That's a lot of freaking points. Hold on, I gotta look.
Second place has 930.
Wow.
So we are crushing. I mean, again, this is like 4 games, but we're crushing in baseball right now because we're geniuses. So you should listen to us. We're doing draft-a-thons. We're drafting 4 teams at once. Me and Beimfohr are crushing baseball. Me and Daigle have the basketball team advancing at the moment, which is bananas. So if one of these draft-a-thon teams wins something, I'm going to lose my mind. It's going to be bananas.
It's impressive to even advance during one of those drafts because you are literally the worst drafter in the whole room.
Right.
It's like even in a sport that you know something about, like with football, it's like you don't get to look at your team. You are the worst drafter in that whole room in every one of those. So to advance, it actually would be pretty impressive.
Yeah. So before we get into this, we just want to make sure that you like and subscribe to Spike Week on the YouTube channel, the podcast, however you listen to us. Throw us a review. It helps a ton. We love reading them. We love seeing the stuff. But yeah, so going from the draft-a-thon to sort of a serious topic for me anyways, I think I sent you a little teaser video. We never released it, but I want to talk about between, the 3, mostly 2 for now, because I'm just now starting to dabble in drafters, so I can't give complete feedback on that other than no dark mode drafters. What are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
They made some nice upgrades this year, so maybe we can talk about that at the end.
Yeah, I was looking at their interface a little bit over the weekend. But between the two from last year that were big, which was DraftKings and Underdog, I want to talk about some of the stuff that we actually like with the specific sites, what we're excited about with them, and some of the stuff we're hoping for them to fix. And this is like the last week we can do this because next week we got to talk draft on Tuesday. We might be doing something special for the draft. I don't want to speak out of turn yet on that.
Yep.
But we got to talk draft next Tuesday, and then after that, we're going to be talking rosters and everything else going forward. And everyone, the teams are going to be mostly set, not completely. So it'll just be strategy talk from there on out for the most part.
Just be waiting for Will Fuller to figure out where he's. William. We'll be waiting for William Fuller to figure out where he's going to play. That's like the last, I guess, and Melvin Gordon, the two guys. Probably that is kind of crazy. Two of the maybe most influential. Apparently, that's a hard word. Free agents to sign somewhere or sign back at their original team. Right? Melvin was like, if he leaves, everybody is wheels up on Javonte Williams. Melvin goes somewhere else, and it's like, what does that mean for him? What does that mean for those other backs? And then obviously Will Fuller, if you're in this community, if you're in a lot of other fantasy football communities, he's a big hot topic and has not signed yet. And so we're going to be into it. Like you said, it's coming so fast. It's hard for me to believe how fast that whole draft cycle and everything is coming. And so I'm excited to do this show to talk a little bit more about. I think it's always important, these industry related topics that like nobody really gets into. Like look, at the end of the day, this game has to grow and all these products have to get better. And no one is really like throwing shade or anything with anything negative we say here today. And no one is, being a homer or an influencer or whatever if we say something positive. But I think it's important for everybody to understand where everything is at in the industry, because we're still, the crypto bros that appreciate, we're still so early and everything is going to grow a lot. And everyone should have an expectation of what they're getting into when they dive into these things. Because even some of the lesser sites, right? Underdog is certainly the most kind of popular, famous at this time, but even some of the lesser sites are blowing up. I mean, FFPC, which we probably won't get into today, just dropped that it's $1 million prize pool on FFPC. Like, they don't even have a mobile app.
Right.
You can't even draft from your phone. I mean, I guess technically you can, but you can't even like basically draft from your phone on FFPC, and they're giving away $1 million. So the space is so crazy that I think some of these conversations are pretty important.
Yeah. And I think that we have to understand that we need to be patient in certain regards to things as well. I bring up what happened over this past weekend with DraftKings, right? So I think that I kind of feel a little like, not that I feel bad for big companies a lot, but I feel a little bad for DraftKings because I feel like they got bullied into doing a product that they weren't ready to do a little bit. And I think maybe somebody hit the panic button a little, and that's why the ticket fiasco happened, where they were giving out all these tickets because they were worried about a contest failing. They probably overinflated it bigger than what was needed to be for that first week. They should have made it a little smaller, maybe. But they were getting bullied online by all these people. Like, when are we doing? Oh my God, was it USFAL double NOP? Yeah. USFL. Like, everyone's like bullying them on Twitter. So they're like, fine, guys, here it is. Let's drop it. And then it was not close to full the day before. And so they probably panicked at DraftKings, and like they did what they could do to fill the thing. The product wasn't ready. And I don't fully blame DraftKings for that. I just don't think they were fully ready for that particular situation. So I give them a little slack on that one.
I agree. It's always difficult. It's easy to sit back in our chairs and throw shade when that situation happens. I'm not saying I would have done the ticket thing. I'm not saying I would have done anything that they did, but
right.
I don't think they were even, as anyone in this space. I'm sure you follow, if you're watching this, you probably follow Adam Levitan on Twitter. He tweeted out not that long ago that, basically it seemed like DraftKings wasn't even going to do USFL DFS.
Yeah.
And as it relates to this show, this podcast, best ball is kind of not that different of a situation. It's certainly much bigger. Obviously, they have multi-million-dollar prize pools in best ball, but it was a situation where they're attaching this best ball product onto their DFS platform.
Right.
Like, it is done through your DFS app, your DFS website. It is not built for that. And so, well, I'm sure we'll say plenty of probably negative things today about the DraftKings best ball products, but I do think it is at least, to be like human about it, like reasonable to understand that like best ball is not how DraftKings is going to make their money. It is not their top priority, nor should it be. And so we need some improvements from them for sure if they're going to continue to carry the product. However, similar to USFL, this is not something that is, that we should expect for them to spend a ton of resources on. So it's kind of that balancing act from a user expectation perspective.
Yeah, and you got to give them kudos for even carrying the best ball product over the last few years, because let's look at FanDuel. Like, it's known that I prefer to play my DFS for the NFL on FanDuel every week. I know DraftKings is the big one for DFS, but I've always preferred FanDuel. Like, I just feel like I get an edge there, to be perfectly honest. And it's proven right. Sometimes it's proven wrong. But the point is, FanDuel is doing nothing with best ball. You had like your 10-person leagues. You had like little things. There was no big tournaments on FanDuel last year.
There were no tournaments, right?
None.
They had a best ball product, but like it was, like you said, like 12-man leagues, 3-man leagues, whatever.
It was not well done. The score, like where they kept the scoring, was reminiscent to sort of almost like when DraftKings started. Do you remember it was showing up in your live results for the whole week and everyone was losing their mind? It wasn't quite that bad, but
your whole lineups page, that was so funny. Your whole lineups page was like, if you drafted hundreds of best ball teams, your entire lineups page is all those.
Yeah, I remember I think it was week 1 of the NFL season, just being an absolute nightmare trying to navigate. But to DraftKings credit, I think that was fixed after the first week. They found a way to tab it over to your other things. So they do listen. Like I know people like to give them a ton of crap because they're one of the bigger ones. And we're, like you said, we're going to get into some stuff that I don't like about their product and stuff that I do like about their product. But I think it's important for us to do these shows because they hear the feedback. They listen to the feedback. And they try to make their products better, whether we think they do or not. But I do think they do. So let's just stick with DraftKings right now. What are some of the things that you do like about the DraftKings product?
It's definitely difficult with DraftKings because the big thing that always sticks out to me is if you are a fantasy player and you play on DraftKings, having something that is centralized, which is not a kosher word nowadays. We're a decentralized community now, but having this provider that I can go to, like I'm playing DFS every day on DraftKings. Maybe you're playing, you're betting on sports or whatever. Having all this on this one provider is a perk, I think. Being able to just like have this DraftKings app where I'm just doing everything. Like you talked about FanDuel. I don't really play a lot of FanDuel DFS. I sprinkle in some here and there, but like having everything about my, gambling, if you will, flow through this one company is a real perk. From a user experience perspective, I think they're definitely severely lacking almost on all fronts. But what I will say is they were the first to do 20-round drafts. They were the first to do full point PPR. I also honestly kind of like the DraftKings scoring. They used their DFS scoring in their best ball form. So that's even more than just PPR. That is 100-yard bonuses, for both running backs and wide receivers, and 300-yard bonuses for quarterbacks. I like that scoring, honestly.
So
the dogs maybe like DraftKings better than the other sites.
That's what it sounds like. And you hit on exactly my main thing with DraftKings. I love the scoring system. I like it better than Underdog scoring system, just to be point blank. And I like everything you said. I like the full point. I love the bonuses. Like, give me bonuses for positions every week. And I mean, we could even get more crazy with it. Nothing too nuts, but like, I love having those bonuses for the DraftKings players and building upon those. And I think it alters your strategy, not a ton. Like, it doesn't make you switch things like a 1,000,000%, but like it's going to cause some tiebreakers here and there. Who's more likely to do this or that? And so I like getting that little slight extra layer that it's almost just like the whipped cream on top. So you have your normal scoring systems, and then you just get this little layer of dessert on top where it's like, okay, well, maybe I want to take this quarterback now because I want to make sure I have a quarterback that can consistently throw for 300 yards throughout the season. It really limits the downside quarterbacks like a Jimmy Garoppolo who's a much better underdog play last year than he would have been on DraftKings because he's just not throwing for 300 yards, and it's going to cost you severely if that's your main guy. So I find the scoring system, and I was hoping that Underdog was going to possibly alter a bit or throw some contests that had some stuff like that in it, but they haven't yet. Not to say that they won't, but I thought maybe they would start looking towards that, and we haven't heard anything yet.
Yeah, I think I understand the my dogs are literally playing right next to me now, so I apologize if they're we talk about this all the time. This is their playtime, but I think having those bonuses, what Underdog would view it as is like kind of fluff, extra fluff. Like Underdog would view their scoring format as kind of the purest form of fantasy. But I like the extra layers. Anytime you like, maybe I'm exaggerating a little bit, but almost anytime you can put on, good Lord, you can put on extra layers to a format, right? We talked about the Superflex thing. They did backyard best ball, rookies and sophomores. Underdog is willing to do this in their formats, throw on these crazy extra layers. But when you can do it in the scoring, I think that's actually where you can make things way more interesting because you love to, you brought up Jimmy Garoppolo, but you love to joke about Trey Lance. But a quarterback that could run for 100 yards and a touchdown on DraftKings, that is an extra added 3 points. That's a big deal.
Right.
Like if quarterbacks are averaging 16 or 17 points and you can get 3 more from hitting a certain milestone, right? And then that's rushing. Now let's talk about Tom Brady. Tom Brady's not adding anything from rushing.
Nope.
But he's throwing for 300 yards
almost every week, right?
Every week, right?
Yeah.
And so but the ADP and like our opponents may not always, I'm not saying they weren't reflecting that with Brady, but they may not always reflect that. And so it's because there's only so many things you can account for, when you're it's not that easy to account for all of that in this game. And so I like the extra little added elements to best ball specifically. I actually would prefer, you talked about, again, your FanDuel DFS play. From a DFS perspective, I would actually prefer it to be simpler versus best ball. I think we want to stack up those different elements to it because the more variance and the more kind of fun and different ways we can think about this thing, I think is going to be better for the game.
Yeah. And think about let's just take Trey Lance, who I like to joke about, like you said. But let's just say he goes off this year, right? And you have him as your playoff quarterback. And he has one of those nuclear games where he throws for 300 yards. He rushes for 100. And now all of a sudden, you have to have Trey Lance to win the championship. Yep. And I like that. I like that you had to have Jamar Chase last year. And you know what? I didn't in the underdog finals, and
Yeah.
it sucked. But I love that you had to have a guy like that, and you put these bonus points on it, and you absolutely have to have these guys. And I think it just adds a layer of fun for me. I know that's probably not for everybody. For me, I love that added layer.
And the fun thing is important. I'm glad you said that because look, we're all trying to make money. We're all trying to we're gonna spend the next, right? It's April. What is today? April 19th. We're gonna spend
Good
the
Lord.
next 5 months talking about all the different ways we can strategize around this game that we're playing. But at the end of the day, if it's not fun, it's not gonna last.
Yeah.
The reason why we all do this is because drafting is fun. Why best ball is successful is because the most fun part of fantasy sports is drafting, and then the chaos of sweating out the
Sweating
teams.
everything out.
And I don't have to worry about all the bad parts, right? It's waivers and all that stuff. I don't have to think about that. So
Right.
we have all the best parts. Now let's ramp that up. And I think I'm glad we actually started with DraftKings because I think their scoring ramps up that fun level type of thing. Imagine you're sweating the championship, just like you'd be sweating in DFS Sunday, and your quarterback has 297 yards, and it's 3rd down and 4, and it's this is it. I need this to win $1 million, or to not even just win $1 million, but move up
to level up.
Move up 2 more price tiers, because that's a lot of points. That you're getting. So
could be $1,000 swing.
That fun. I think that is a good part of the game, not a bad part of the game.
So if you want to pull up KZ Brown's comment, that's actually kind of my next thing. So he says it's crazy DK hasn't updated their interface in nearly a decade. Maybe that's a boomer take, but it's a nightmare to navigate. I don't disagree with this at all. This is my biggest problem with DraftKings, right? So you not only is their interface a bit rough and feels super dated, especially in the best ball thing. The one thing that Underdog brought in with their good interface, their the superior interface, is being able to name your teams. Now, I don't need to go name every single team that I draft, but when you're going through the season and you're able to mark all right, this is my Henry Eckler Chase team, or this is my Kyler Hopkins, Derrick Henry / Gronkowski team or something, and these guys are smashing, and you want to keep following the progress of this team.
Right.
That's amazing. I think I told this story when I had Karain on, but I did last year I had this little fun gimmick where I wanted to show Karain that it didn't matter how many running backs you drafted, you could get a team to the playoffs. So I drafted a 10 RB team, just one on DraftKings for fun. I thought it would be fun to try to do it. And I started and I had 140 something teams on DraftKings in the championship. And I noticed with 3 weeks left, I was in contention with that team to make a playoff spot. So then the next week I wanted to find that team again. I knew it wasn't, and you know how they do if you're in contention, it puts it towards the top, but then it buries all your other teams.
Everything else. Yep.
So this team, I couldn't find it. I was searching through, and you're scrolling, and it just shows DraftKings Millionaire, or whatever it was called, or whatever they call it. And trying to find that team, I looked for it for probably 40 minutes one day. I wasn't going to put any more time into it than that. And I could not find it. I eventually found it the last week, and it missed the playoffs by 2 points, which was such a nightmare because it would have been so fun to throw that up there. But the overall point is I want to be able to find certain teams. I think I had a Debo Cup team that I was trying to track. And the good thing for that was it was in that top half all year. So it was easier to find because it was one of the advancing teams. Right. But I still had to click on every single team as I was trying to find it because there's no rhyme or reason to it. Or if there is, nobody knows what it is, right? You couldn't go week to week and be all right, well, I know that this team is going to be the 4th team every week, or this team is going to be the 60th team every week. It changed every week, and it's just that is a nightmare. And to me, part of the fun is tracking these teams.
100%.
If I can't track, I know we make the jokes about you can't talk about your best ball teams. The FBI is going to come for you and all that other nonsense. But I like to track my best ball teams week to week. I like to look and see like, oh, do I have that Jamar Chase, Debo Samuel, Jonathan Taylor combination somewhere? Did I get that?
Yep.
And if I do, I love on Underdog that I can name. It's like, okay, Taylor, Chase, Debo. And that's what I'll name the team so that I'm like, okay, so I can track this team now.
Yeah. So that's my big thing with DraftKings. There are certainly other flaws in the user experience, mainly from a drafting perspective. But the tracking and following of teams and finding of teams, like you said, is by far, like, I actually don't think it's close.
It's not.
The actual draft part is fine. It's not perfect, of course, but it's fine. Everything else is like certainly has its own issues. The tracking and following of teams. The crazy thing about that is that Underdog, really all that Underdog implemented that's that better or different is the ability to name teams, which is really not that profound. It's really not that profound. So Underdog isn't even doing anything super innovative on that level, but they gave us an option, right? That's all we asked for, is an ability to be to the problem that you outlined is when I see this, show me a team that has Cup, Debo, JT, or whatever, and and so I can track that one. Not only does DraftKings not allow you to do that, you literally cannot find it. You cannot find any team. You cannot find a team even when they're advancing, right? So for anyone that hasn't played on DraftKings, all of your advancing teams will be at the top of your live contest page. Because they're winning money. And so they put those at the top of your live, but you can't normally on DraftKings, you can filter that. You can filter that page. It doesn't work for best ball. Right. And so you cannot order that page at all. And so like if you only have a handful of teams, it probably is no big deal. But if you are like both of us or other serious players and you're drafting a lot of teams, it is truly impossible to follow any sort of team on DraftKings. And my biggest fear is that that is a part of the experience for sure. I'm not certain they're going to upgrade any part of the experience for this year, but that is a part of the experience. I'm not confident at all that they're going to invest in. And so
and it's the one thing that if I had one choice on what they could do, it would be that. So 100%. That's what sucks.
And so we're teaser, spoiler, whatever. We're going to be working on something on spikeweek.com to help you follow these teams even better than even if Underdog upgrades that kind of, following and sweating experience of your teams. We want to give you a even better experience probably than what they're going to. However, DraftKings just it's got to be better. It's got to be better.
Well, it's got to be better because the people that are going to use the Spike Week are going to be like us and, some people that are a little more serious about it. But what we want to do is be growing the product every year, right?
Yep.
So the way you do that is, let's say my friend who just started dabbling in best ball drafts 20 teams, right? Nothing crazy. 20 is a decent amount. It's nothing major, but just that 20 teams, he's like, I'm not having fun because I don't know what I'm looking at.
Exactly.
So why are they going to come back next year? So I wonder if that would have been the case with me the first year I did best ball, because I only did about 5 teams. So it was easy to track because I didn't know what the hell best ball was the first year.
Yeah.
To be completely honest, the first year I did 2 or 3 years ago. And I was able to follow those teams because they were just on that one little side by themselves. There was 5 of them. It wasn't hard to follow. When I got to 100 and, I had over 300 teams, 400 teams, whatever the hell I had last year. And I'm doing it between multiple sites and I'm trying to what do I have here? What do I have here? So it sounds great that we're going to be having something to track that at Spike Week, but I worry about the casuals coming in to grow. We always want to grow because once you're not growing, you don't want to be stagnant, and that happens, and things start to go downhill. So the way to grow is to get more casual players excited about it. And it starts with the sites, and then it evolves to them looking for the strategy and then using like the Spike Week tools instead.
Exactly. I couldn't say it any better, right? Before the whole best ball space, I've worked for RotoGrinders, and the reason why RotoGrinders exists is because people got into DraftKings and FanDuel, and there was a good enough experience for them to see how their teams were doing, right? It was a good enough experience for them to build their teams or whatever, but they needed more. And then they went to the RotoGrinders of the world, and the other companies. And that's what the hope for us here is, from a business perspective, is that people will get really into this, like we are into this, and there's enough at the sites, but they need more. Yeah. And that's what we're trying to build. And so, but there has to be a requisite level of commitment from the sites. And my fear from we can get away from DraftKings, but my fear is that, DraftKings is still going to be a breadwinner in this industry, no matter how, everybody loves Underdog. I love Underdog. Drafters is growing. Maybe FanDuel will get in this space or whatever. DraftKings is going to be a leader in this space, point blank, period.
It's the entry point.
Yeah, 100%. Everyone can play DraftKings. Everyone can play DraftKings. They are a global leader in gaming. And so they are going to be a part of this game. And so we need them to, I'm not expecting them to invest as much as we would all hope they would, but we do need them to invest a requisite level of commitment to the product. And so hopefully, I'm not saying it'll happen in the next few weeks for this year or whatever, but hopefully over the long term, we can get a little bit more from them.
Yeah, they are the entry point to the casual player, the people that just play DFS. They're going to be the ones that see
or bet on sports or bet on
sports. Yeah, exactly. Like they're going to be on that app. They're going to be like, oh, what's best ball? Oh, I can draft. It's May and I can draft the football team. Like it's an allure, right? And you have to go out of your way to find some of the underdogs and the drafters. Felix brings up a good point. He says DraftKings is the Walmart / McDonald's of the world. And it's absolutely true. They are. And that's not a bad thing. You need these. You need these bigger products because, like, again, you need to bring awareness and then you branch off. So the only other thing I'd say that I do like about the DraftKings product, as I actually just went completely blank. There was something I wanted to bring up. Shit, I completely forgot what I was going to bring up. So we can move on to Underdog.
Can't be that important. Can we really quick touch on? Did you do any? So I don't want to speak on it because I personally did not do any FanDuel or Yahoo either. The biggest, probably from a fantasy sports perspective, there's DraftKings and FanDuel are 1A, 1B, however you want to rank them. Yahoo would be like third. And I know that both FanDuel and Yahoo offered games. I did not play in either of them because they strictly offered the 12-man leagues, 10-man leagues, or whatever. Did you play in any of them? Do you have any feedback on those?
On the FanDuel ones, I played in two because I have a friend that she prefers FanDuel and she was trying to learn best ball. So she's like, can you jump in a couple drafts with me and tell me so that and she's like, let's do it on FanDuel. I'm like, why? Why are we doing this? I eventually got her to switch over to Underdog and she drafts on Underdog now. And to be completely honest with you, until about week 11 or 12, I mostly just forgot about those two teams. Now, they weren't big money teams or anything like that. They were either like $3 or $5 teams or whatever they were. So my experience was I drafted the teams and I forgot about them and I didn't care. And they didn't, but FanDuel gave you no reason to care. And I think they kind of buried them. Like you really had to go look for your teams to find them, if I recall correctly. So when I showed her she was winning like week 13, she's like, oh my God, I forgot about this team. And I'm just
so they didn't show up like how DraftKings has if you went to the live contest. They didn't show up in your winnings or anything like that.
I don't remember. I knew it was like a specific way you had to get to them, but that just goes to show you how inferior the product is where I can't even tell you.
Yeah.
I can't even tell you what I did to find those teams. So Anthony also brings up the point that it says, seems like companies build the site once and then never change the core design. Same with standard redraft on ESPN. And yeah, I mean, I can't knock that. I've had a team on ESPN, a league that I run on ESPN between friends for 12 years now.
Yep.
And it's been the same thing. The one thing I'll give them credit for is there was, I don't know if you ever played yours on ESPN around like 2015, 2016.
Mm-hmm.
Their app used to be a mess. The app used to screw up every week.
Bad. It was so bad.
And I don't think it screwed up once last year.
No, it's good. It's good. It's legitimately good now. Yeah.
So even though it looks the same, they have performance upgrades, which actually kind of leads me into Underdog. We're going to give a lot of praise to Underdog, but I'm going to start off with a negative right away. I know you probably do a lot of your drafts on a desktop because of the streams and everything like that.
Right.
Last year, I did most of my drafts via the app. And there was a glitch, and I saw it still happen about 2 weeks ago. So they still have this glitch happening where the same player name will show up twice. And it will shadow over another player, and you'll see Cole Kmet, and then you do a drop down the bottom 3 places down, you'll see Cole Kmet, and you don't know which one is actually him and which one's the other guy. So if you pick the wrong one, you actually draft a different player. And to me, that is a big nightmare. That could cause you to really screw up a team if you're trying to set up a stack, if you're trying to set up something. And it's not like it happens every single draft, but to me, I saw it more than once. So, probably 5 to 10 times the real Cole Kmet stack drafting twice. Just do it.
Excellent comment by Anthony. But Brett says he's noticed that too. And Anthony with the real alpha play is just draft both of the. I don't know why you're complaining. You wanted Cole Kmet. Why wouldn't you want two of Cole Kmet? But
exactly.
So I haven't experienced that one myself personally. The thing that I have experienced is a fairly similar thing. So we're getting the Underdog negative comments out of the way. So shout out to our people at Underdog. You just get to suffer through this part of it. But is when sometimes, and I have no true understanding and I have a little bit of understanding of like the tech background of things, but I have no understanding of the rhyme or reason to why or when this happens. But maybe it's your internet, maybe it's something on their end, and I will not be able to make a pick.
Oh,
I'm literally I'm clicking away. It looks like I have service on my phone. It will not let me.
Yeah, I actually have seen that too.
I'll click around multiple different players, and that would be okay because I could queue somebody up, right?
Yeah,
and no big deal. But the real issue is then in that scenario, the players it doesn't like play to my queue,
right?
This is 100%. We're really, compared to like DraftKings, we're really, we're
nitpicking.
We're nitpicking, but this is the one that has always caused me the most strife. And I'm never the type of person to be like, message these guys because you made me pick Jimmy Graham over Cole Kmet. But like, it is one of those things that happens to me that does actually not happen to me on, say, a DraftKings, where I've never had a situation on DraftKings or on Drafters where if there was a glitch and I just couldn't pick somebody or whatever, or I timed out, my queue was not honored. And there have been situations on Underdog where I always remember it because it's one of those times where I just like I'm like, no, I want Cole Kmet, and it won't give it to me. And then I'm like, okay, it's fine. I have a queue. So I'm not worried about it. And then someone that is not in your queue, who is at the top of the ADP list, gets drafted. So weird little quirk about that platform while we're getting out, while we're airing our vengeances against against the platform. But those little things are, they suck. It sucks when it happens for sure.
Yeah, and we want the whole point of getting this out early is just like maybe somebody at Underdog or maybe somebody at DraftKings sees this and they make it a point to fix this before in a month things are going to be off to the races. So
Yeah.
if they can
You
get
can't
some of
fix
this
anything.
stuff,
You can't
yeah.
fix anything when we're thousands of drafts deep in BBM. So
Right. And I wouldn't expect them to. So that's why I wanted to get this out now. Just like these are just little things that they can clear up. The other thing I do like a little better about DraftKings was the advance rate on the main tournament. I did like that. I can't remember the exact platform, but I think it was like 2 tickets, like the first top 2 in the first 2 rounds advance, where like Underdog it was 1 or something like that, and then all of a sudden it switched to like 16 players and it was 1, and I wasn't aware of that. That's on me for not reading like the tournament rounds for sure. But I thought that the advance rate for DraftKings is a little smoother and a little easier to get your team through, which might be a bad thing, but I like to feel like I have a better chance of advancing.
would you rather have a bigger final round with a greater shot of getting to the final round, right? So let's say you get to the playoffs and multiple of every playoff round advance.
Yeah.
2, 3, whatever. But you have, so what, it was 96 in the Best Ball Mania finals this year, something like that,
It was
right?
a little more. It
Or
was
100
over
something.
100. It was like
100
100
something.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's just call it 100 just to make it round even numbers. Would you rather have 100 people make it to the final round where the 2 playoff rounds beforehand are like 1 person advancing out of your 12 to 18 person group, or would you rather have a 250 man final where 2 people advance out of those rounds?
So I'm torn on that one because I can see it both ways, and I'm even more torn on it because of what I think the actual number of players are going to be in this year's Best Ball Mania.
Yeah.
So I would normally say that I'd like to keep it around 150, like 150 players. But if I had to choose between the 2, it's probably the 100. So yeah, you know what? Underdog probably did it right. But if I'm a casual player or I want to feel like I have more of a shot of advancing to the finals, right? So the right answer is probably make it harder to make it to the finals. That's if I had, gun to my head, I probably want it to be harder. But it felt, I don't know, I guess we like to feel safe sometimes. And we just want to feel like, all right, I just have to be second best. And honestly, it doesn't matter, I guess. But like if you feel like you have to be number 1, it feels a lot more stressful than having to be top 2 out of 12, doesn't it? So
yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
100%. I had obviously you made one team to the BBM finals, and I made 50% of one team to the BBM finals, but I had my handful of teams in the semifinals, and it's extremely stressful. And so, I always go back and forth between pretty much what you said, where I think the optimal answer is actually to make it harder. Keep it at whatever 100, 150 people in the actual final, and make it harder for BBM3 this upcoming year. However, like if some of the casual players are that important, giving them more of a chance to make it is also good, because there's a balancing act, right? Between, at the end of the day, the people that are spending the most money on the platform are the ones that are the most important.
Right.
Because that's what keeps the game going. But we do need the new casual players that are only drafting a handful of teams. So going back and forth between that is a difficult thing. But I think that I will say that is one thing I think Underdog has done well is they definitely are going to think about that. I'm not saying they did it perfect last year, to your point, kind of what you were talking about with DraftKings versus Underdog advance rates, but they're always thinking about that and
Right.
weighing those. We'll see. Maybe we'll do a recap when Best Ball Mania 3 comes out and be like, these fucking idiots. Like I hate this format, but they will listen for sure. Whereas DraftKings is just gonna do their thing.
And I say all this, and I was sweating. I think I got 31 DraftKings teams into the playoffs. So I was sweating my DraftKings teams. I wasn't even looking at Underdog because I didn't play as much. So I only had like 4 or 5. that made it through to the playoffs.
And you got one to the final?
And I got one to the final. And I wasn't even paying attention to those teams until the third week of the playoffs when all my DraftKings teams died.
Yeah.
They all got massacred. I advanced the first week and then I got slaughtered. And then I was like, oh, let me see what I got on Underdog. And I had two teams that had a chance at the final week. And I was like, holy shit, I wasn't even paying attention to these teams. So yeah, I mean, like DraftKings might have been easier, but I still drafted better teams on Underdog.
I was ready prior to the semifinal week to like proclaim myself the best DraftKings best ball player of all time. Like my advance rate on DraftKings was unreal.
Yeah.
And then my advance rate from the first playoff round to the second playoff round was like unreal, but just variance, right? But I just like I had a ton of Cup on there. I had a ton of JT on there. I had a ton of like all the Debo, obviously, but I had Chase. I had all the right guys on DraftKings in particular, and I was just ready to like
collect all the money.
Yeah, like I got you guys are not like either Spike Week is not going to be here because I won so much money, or you guys are going to fucking hate me in 2022 because what's about to happen. And I bricked the semifinals. Literally, I mean I had only a handful of teams, same thing as you, only a handful of teams on Underdog alive in the semifinals, and like a ton on DraftKings. Stone bricks did not get a team through to the finals on DraftKings. So it's crazy year.
It was crazy the way that worked out on DraftKings. Anthony brings up another good point about Underdog. Underdog, please turn on auto draft for AFK drafters. Yeah, I mean, like if after 3 rounds they're taking that full shot clock, let's get some auto draft there because it's brutal if you get in one of those drafts that have like 4 guys that are auto drafting. We take all of our time on clocks when we're streaming, but that's for a reason. We're talking about our picks. When you're just sitting there doing a draft with a bunch of randos and it's taking you forever and you should have been done 20 minutes ago. Yeah, I understand.
Herzig, who came on the last episode of Best Ball Bros here on the Spike Week YouTube, Justin Herzig from Establish the Run and the winner of the very first Best Ball Mania on Underdog, he and I had a conversation with someone from Underdog over the last week or so, actually stemmed from something that we talked about on the show. And I can't say exactly what their plans are, but what I will say is that they are very cognizant of how long it takes to draft. They're very cognizant of these types of things. And so I'm not saying they have the perfect solution, but whether it be the auto draft type of thing after X number of rounds, whether it be number of rounds in the draft, right? They've gone to 20 so far before Best Ball Mania comes out.
I'm not a fan of,
but maybe they will not continue with 20, right? Because 20 ends up taking an hour. 18, if you're in a quick room, can take you 40 minutes. That's a big fucking difference. That's a huge difference. And time commitment is a real thing. Like, like you mentioned how many drafts you did. If anyone that's listening here probably did several drafts, I did hundreds. Eagles, if Eagles is listening, imagine taking 20 minutes off of every single draft that he
quality
did.
Of life is gonna.
That's like he's gonna live. He's gonna live.
Like drop a Z from that name if he gets some better quality of life.
He's gonna live 10 more years.
Yeah.
If we remove the 20 minutes from the best ball timer, but they will listen, and so we kind of shit on them a little bit at the beginning with some of the little bugs or whatever, but they're listening and they're very cognizant of the fact that like our time is important.
Yeah.
Like they want us to invest, but they don't want to like hold us hostage.
Yeah, and if we wanted to be able to fire off 5 drafts in one night, and we get held down to only doing 3, the 20 round thing, I personally like that they were different from DraftKings, and one of them you were doing 18, one of them you were doing 20. I like the difference in that. I don't want this to feel uniform. I want, if I want to do something particular. So that's why I think I like the scoring system too, right? It's different on DraftKings than Underdog. Again, just a little variation of the strategy that you're employing. Nothing crazy. You're not going nuts. But to talk about some of the stuff that Underdog does well, the interface is by far the best in the industry, and it's not even close, which is kind of scary because it's not like, you know, rocket science on their interface. It's just so smooth and everything makes sense for the most part. And how are other sites not doing what they're doing? It blows my mind.
Being in some of the like technical world, some of the like development world or whatever over the course of my life, you definitely find that having this like smooth user experience and is like always an advantage.
Mhm.
And it doesn't really make sense because you're like, once you see it, you're like, yeah, why didn't everybody do this?
Right.
You know, but when Underdog does it, you're like, holy shit, this is the best thing I've ever seen. And people can't recreate it because you can't just like copy it, you know? So like it's this weird situation where they have a really good team. Jeremy is very smart, their founder, and hires they have just a ton of very smart people that work there, and the user experience is it's the best in all of fantasy sports.
Yes.
DFS, season long, everything. It is the best user experience in all of fantasy sports. Why are they the more than their marketing, more than shout out Josh and Hayden, shout out everybody, more than their content, more than everything? Why are they the best in class in this space? It is the user experience. You can pick up the app, draft on your phone. It is so smooth. So they deserve like an infinite amount of credit. The dev team, design team, whoever that is, everybody deserves like just seriously an infinite amount of credit. That team, whoever designed this and built this product, has like probably themselves more than anyone in the best ball space like sent this to the moon.
Yeah.
Like, why are we able to have? They're gonna give away like fucking $3 million to like the Best Ball Mania 3 winner or whatever. Why are they able to do that? Is because everyone in the country, obviously outside of some legislation in some states, is able to like draft on the shitter, and it's like easy, and it's like easier than making any fantasy team you've ever made in your entire life. It's literally not just is it good enough, it's better and easier to do it. So
you can do it right while sitting at your desk at work. Like, it's just so smooth. And I think it's the three things: is it's simple, it's smooth, and it doesn't feel dated. And the best way that I can compare this to is you work on a bunch of stuff like content wise. I work on a bunch of stuff content wise. And the best thing I can compare that to is trying to create a logo for a product, right? So when you first started Spike Week, you were probably like thinking of all these crazy ideas, like trying to overcomplicate it. The same thing we did for my show, the Hometown Ghost Story show. Like, I have all these ideas in my head. And then the one that is always the best is it's simple, it doesn't look dated, and it's easy for the consumer to read and see. You know what I mean? So like, look at our logo here. It's simple
as it gets,
but it catches your eye and you see it. And it's the same for my other stuff. And I think that being simple, easy, and not dated is just what sets them apart from everybody else. And sometimes I don't understand how other companies don't get that. But
everybody wants to do. I'm not gonna call out any specifics, but having been in the DFS space for such a long time, like, you know, at new DFS companies and stuff pop up all the time, new ones die or whatever, and like, you know, everybody wants to create this like logo is just such a perfect metaphor that, like, honestly, just make it as simple as possible. I mean, look at the green screen behind me. It is space with a stupid ass rocket ship. Like, it's not even anything special. Behind Rob is just like some kind of retro-ish, eye-catching, eye-popping text that like catches your eye. All we did was like we decided, hey, let's do a rocket, and then that's about it. Like that was basically about it. Underdog decided on this simplicity and
Great
functionality, a beautiful logo,
Yep.
and this and beautiful branding, and like now let's just make it as simple and easy to draft as possible. And they just absolutely knocked it out of the park. So hopefully Josh, Hayden, Andrew, Nick, Mags, anyone that is listening to this, we're making up for shitting on a couple of very minor bugs to say that if anyone, like, again, if anyone hasn't, the people that are listening haven't like dug into this, the product is literally like, it is best in class by far across any form of fantasy sports.
And the last thing I'll say about Underdog is they listen. When you say something to them, they listen. I came up with a best ball idea the middle of the year last year that I was like, I kind of hope they try this format. And I threw it out into the Twitterverse. I didn't expect any answer. And it got a ton of discussion. I wanted to do a 12 max tournament where you can only enter it 12 times. And as you enter the tournament, you can only draft from each of the 12 positions once. So if you sign up and you pull the 7 spot on your first draft, the next time you can't draft that from the 7 spot again. You're going to get randomized one of the different spots. And it kind of evolved into doing more, like doing a bigger tournament and like maximizing it so that you could enter more times, but you have to go through all 12 spots before you can reset that again and do it again. And I had a discussion with them about it, and they were like, this is we like this idea. We're not sure if we can implement it, but we're going to look into doing stuff like this. And I don't need it implemented. And it brought a great best ball discussion between a bunch of other people who chimed in. And it was just a community experience. It wasn't, like you knocked it on the NFT guys, and I do too all the time. But like legitimately, like as a community experience, we want to grow this together. We're not doing this to pump bags and, sell out. We are trying to make the product better as a whole, and everybody can reach in. So that's kind of where that's where I stand on that.
Yeah. Trust me, I would love to pump my bags as well. So I'm not hating on any of the NFT guys. And I do actually support a lot of the things that the NFT community kind of vouches for from that community perspective is fairly similar to best ball, actually. So I'm a fan of that. Anthony says Underdog has the best news and analysis, which is definitely true because they have a media wing, literally, that is that they are the ones providing the news and analysis, which sets them apart. Social media team and promos. So I totally agree.
I do not agree with that. They are second. They are second best.
To who and on which one of those things that he mentioned?
To us on all of them.
They're definitely not as they're shout out again to Underdog. They're creative in terms of like they make silly whatever their head-to-head pick'ems are, and they're like promo pick'ems, like somebody has to make less than 100 3-pointers, like that's whatever. But like true like meme level creativity, behind Rob's head is where that's at.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to bring up about anything?
I think we should touch on drafters for a couple of minutes. I think they're. I'll just dive in. I think that they're a really important third player in the community. We talked very, very briefly about FanDuel and Yahoo, and we'll see what they do this year. Obviously, we're talking about this before the 2022 draft season happens. Maybe they will have tournaments, and next year at this time we'll be talking about those other sites. But drafters is definitely on the podium in the best ball space. They've made a lot of improvements since last year, and I think that's important to call out. Where I think honestly last year The app could get a little bit glitchy. It was a little bit difficult to deal with. Being on stream, the desktop experience could be a little bit laggy, a little bit glitchy. There were just some things that they needed to work through, but they have knocked those out of the park this year. The experience is actually pretty good. If we're ranking experiences between the three sites that we've talked about today, they're above DraftKings.
Yeah.
They're absolutely above DraftKings. They're not at the Underdog level yet, but they're 100% second in class. Of course, DraftKings has bigger contests. That's just how it works at multi-billion-dollar company compared to a smaller best ball company like Drafters. But this year, I think you'll be surprised to see some of the contests that they're going to be launching. I'm excited for what they're going to be doing this year. I think they're going to be a big part of the best ball kind of, are they going to launch $1 million to first? No, of course not. But are they going to be a big part of the growth of this industry? I absolutely think so. And I think they made some really big steps from a product perspective that have made that allowed them to do so. They're also innovating from a perspective of we talked about some of the auto draft stuff. It's if you literally want to auto draft, you can set a lot more custom features on Drafters than you can on any other site. They're innovating in some ways that kind of sometimes the smaller companies can do better than the bigger companies. And so I just wanted to shout them out as a third player that I think is really important to this space and is really doing some really good things in this space. And the final thing is they have a very unique format. So both DraftKings and Underdog do a regular season, right? 13 weeks, 13 or 14 weeks of a regular season and a 3-week playoff, right? Basically 3, air quotes, Mike Leone, 3 uncorrelated tournaments in the playoffs, culminating in a final week, 1-week shebang.
Yep.
Drafters is full 17 weeks, total cumulative points, point blank period. There's
Davis Maddock must have major wood over this.
100%. Every time I talk to Davis, I cannot have a best ball conversation with Davis where he's not like, I think Underdog needs to launch a cumulative scoring format. They should look at what Drafters is doing and launch one of these. But I do appreciate you've mentioned, we talked about it with DraftKings earlier, having a different scoring format, having a different tournament format is great.
Yeah, absolutely.
And as they grow, having that additional format, I think is great. And I was so goddamn bad at it last year, but I'm actually I've spent some time thinking about it and thinking about the strategy, and I'm pretty excited for it this year. So I do think they deserve a shout out because, it's easy to overlook kind of the smaller players when Underdog is kind of clearly on the top. DraftKings is the biggest company. But we have a third player that is really viable and they're doing some really good things. So shout out to them.
Well, it's important for multiple reasons, right? You want options. First of all, you want to be able to have those options, and to have a smaller company coming in, they help push these other two. Now, Underdog doesn't need the push at the moment. They do everything they're supposed to do, but having that competition at their heels is always a good thing to make sure that they stay on their toes. Yep. And if 2 companies come in and they start taking a ton of this market share, DraftKings is going to go, what the hell is going on? Why are we losing all these players to these other people? So it's awesome that Drafters is coming in and they're innovating and they're doing things different. Being different is important too. If you're going to come in and you're going to do something that others are doing, you need to do it a little different. And so that cumulative scoring thing is massive for them in terms of being completely different. It's going to give people well, I just want my best teams to win because they were the best teams. Right. I don't want them to have to get lucky. So
last year, perfect example. If you had, let's say Cooper Cup was probably from a per dollar, whatever point per dollar is in my DFS brain. From a point per dollar perspective, Cooper Cup was the best pick in fantasy last year.
Yeah.
Over the course of the season, he was the wide receiver 1
wasn't even close
by a lot.
Yeah.
And he was a 3rd, 4th, 5th round pick whatever, depending upon when you drafted. It was even JT, who was the running back one, did not do what Cooper Kupp did for you. And drafters is full PPR, so Cooper Kupp was even more valuable on that site. If they did the playoff format, Kupp was like fine in all the playoff rounds. Like, you didn't need him like in the championship round at all. Right. You didn't really need him in the playoffs. And this is the best pick in all of fantasy. And so it's very easy to run bad, basically, having drafted. You made the best pick in fantasy football that year. And it actually might end up screwing you if you took him over Jamar Chase in a draft, right? And so having an option for us to where you got rewarded, like maximum reward for drafting Cooper Kupp, I think is important.
I agree. I love startups that are doing things and innovating. So I will be doing more stuff on drafters, and it might just limit my DraftKings exposure completely. Yeah. Like, I can't imagine I'm going to draft as much as I did on DraftKings last year at the moment. They're going to have to show a ton of improvement. So a lot of my money is probably going to go to Underdog and drafters this year, to be perfectly fair.
DraftKings, I know this isn't the subject of this show, but DraftKings, like, you could probably just wait till the end and draft against maybe they'll give out tickets like they did to the USFL and let all the fish in, or which they did, by the way, 2 years ago in best ball. Or just the drafts are so soft at the end that we can spend our next 4 months drafting on Underdog and drafters and double back the DraftKings, and you might miss out on last year's 12th round Darrell Henderson, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter that much on DraftKings.
Yeah. That's pretty much all I had on this. I thought this was a great discussion and it needed to be had. I think just being real about this stuff occasionally is very important for everyone to hear, but you don't just throw the negative. You have to throw the positive in too.
Yeah, and you have to throw with the opposite is true. With I think we all agree, everyone agrees that Underdog right now is the best in class product. We also have to be open and honest about some things that haven't been the greatest with that product. That's the only way we're ever going to get better. Right. And DraftKings is so big, they're definitely not going to listen to this, but drafters might and Underdog might, and hopefully that will continue to get better. I'll hit on Anthony's. This is also true. You can basically do custom leagues on drafters, which is if you want to run a best ball league for your home league, you can't. That's a platform that doesn't exist. You can't do that on Underdog. You can't do that on DraftKings in terms of totally customizing everything about your kind of home league if you want to do it for best ball. So there's a lot of great things going on there. So we're to summarize and bring it back around to the end is we have a lot of great options, and this summer is going to be just absolute freaking insanity, man.
Yeah, it's going to be nuts this summer. I am going to be quite poor over the summer, but hopefully
I just paid way too much in taxes, and now I gotta go rummage through the couch to find thousands of dollars to do best ball drafts.
Yeah, we're gonna just start selling some side content, maybe. Anyways, that has been the Spike Week Football Show. I am Rob Coakley. That is Erik Beimfohr, and we will catch you next time.
My audio broke. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay.
It was such a good outro.
I think I'm back. I can hear you now. But my computer's broken right now. So you can send us a this is the perfect time to send us out. I feel like an idiot.
I want you to know that I did just send.
I don't know what's going on. I literally don't know what's going on. I have no idea. I'm sending us home. This is the worst ending to a podcast of all time. You guys can deal with it. Okay, it is. See ya.